Ciao, and welcome to my Potty Post series, 5 Unique Things to See in Tuscany. Join me as I tour the marble quarries of Carrara, visit the sanctuary of Laverna where St. Francis of Assisi went for solitude, walk the ancient wall of Lucca, visit Vinci, birthplace of Leonardo da Vinci, and explore the ancient Etruscan wonder of La Vie Cave. One of our 5 unique things to do in Tuscany is to visit the marble quarries in Carrara, Tuscany, about 4 miles northeast of the town of Carrara, Massa Carrara province. Carrara is located at the foot of the Apuan Alps. Touring the marble mines in the Apuan Alps is an incredible visual experience, which is probably why it was the location chosen for the chase scene in the James Bond film Quantum of Solace. Carrara marble, or Luna marble as the Romans called it, is a type of white or blue-gray marble popular for use in sculpture and building decor. It has been quarried since Roman times in the mountains just outside the town of Carrara, in the northernmost tip of modern-day Tuscany. Famed for its high quality and beauty, Carrara marble has been quarried from the same mountains for over 2,000 years. It can be seen in sculptures and monuments from Rome's Pantheon to London's Marble Arch. Michelangelo made many trips to Carrara to select pieces of the stone for his works, notably the David in Florence and the Pieta in St. Peter's Basilica in Rome. The Apuan Alps show evidence of at least 650 quarry sites, with about half of them currently abandoned or worked out. The Carrara quarries have produced more marble than any other place on Earth. The most prized marble throughout time has been statuario, the pure white marble, which is at present there's only one small mine at this location for statuario, since many of the deposits have been played out. The quarries continue to mine and ship nearly 1 million tons of marble a year, marble which is streaked mostly with gray or black, sometimes orange, and much of this is exported.
For the next couple of switchbacks, we're leaving the motorway, yeah? We'll be going off-road.
Warning: do not sit in the front seat if you are squeamish or faint of heart. You can tour some of the marble mines above Carrara in a self-guided tour using your own car, but to get high into the Apuan Alps, where the real work is going on, you'll need to take a jeep tour. The views from high up, looking out over the Apuan-Vasilian coastline with the Ligurian Sea shining in the distance, are sensational and well worth the effort and expense. Plus, it would be insane to attempt to drive these roads on your own. The Carrara quarries are surrounded by small mountain towns, which is where the quarrymen live who work in the mines. Quarry work has always been very dangerous, and in times past, the workers were not treated very well. And as a consequence of that, they became a radicalized bunch because they wanted to improve the safety of where they worked and get better wages. Today, if you're a quarry worker, it's almost an elite position. There's only 150 certified quarry workers that work in this area right now. Well, here we are at the top. We're up around 3,000 feet in the Apuan Alps, and that is the gorgeous Ligurian Sea shining in the background. I'm praying for good brakes and the engine compression to hold. Are great for putting shrines alongside the roads and in areas where people have had accidents or there have been bandits or where they feel like the Lord has shown them safe passage. And here we are at the bottom of the marble quarry area, and they've erected a shrine for the safety of the workmen. Safety of the quarry workmen. For one of our 5 unique places to visit or things to do in Tuscany, today we're visiting the Laverna Sanctuary, which is a Franciscan sanctuary located in Tuscany's eastern Arezzo province. And we're about 3 kilometers from the small village of Chiusa della Verna, which is also about 75 kilometers east of Florence. In the year 1213, Count Gaetani donated Mount Laverna to St. Francis of Assisi, who was founder of the Franciscan order, as a remote and wild place for those who wanted to live a life of penance, solitude, and prayer. And he had an ulterior motive as well. He hoped that this donation would keep his soul safe. We're just in the forest. It's just an absolutely peaceful place to be. I'd say Count Gaetani made a wise choice for his donation. We're entering the walk back towards the sanctuary, and we need to honor that request for silence. So I'll be as quiet as I can. They rent rooms out now for people that want to come up here on a retreat and just have some quiet time, some times of solitude, prayer. The hermitage built here became a favorite retreat for St. Francis. In 1224, 2 years before his death, while the saint was completing 40 days of fast and prayer, the saint had a vision during which he received the stigmata, which are bodily marks resembling the wounds of the crucified Christ. St. Francis was the first person historically recorded who bore these marks of the crucified Christ on his hands, feet, and side. This is the little church of Santa Maria degli Angeli and represents the original center around which the monastery was developed. It was built in 1216 after the appearance of the Virgin Mary to St. Francis. The little Church of St. Mary still has the original bell that was donated by San Bonaventura in 1257. You think how many feet have walked these stones? How many prayers have gone up? This is the entrance into the primary cell that St. Francis called home. Through this doorway is a dark grotto, at the end of which is a large slab of stone. And then this slab of stone is where St. Francis would sleep, using that stone as a bed. Goodness. That's where he would sleep. They put a metal grate there now to protect it because as visitors would come to the sanctuary, they were trying to take away bits of the stone, thinking that it had a mystical, curative power. It's amazing that these rocks are held in place like this. Ah. Just the magnificent solitude and incredible beauty. This is the Basilica Maggiore, which is the main basilica or church here in the Hermitage. Gonna take a quick look inside. There are several pieces by Andrea della Robbia. That's one of them right there. Della Robbia was a highly regarded Italian Renaissance sculptor. So that's one of his pieces, and I think I see two more up here. That's another Della Robbia. Madonna and Child. And there's one over here. The incense just smells wonderful. And that's the third Della Robbia in here. They're really quite stunning. There's also a relics chapel we're going to take a peek into. The relics chapel contains several objects that belong to St. Francis. This is the actual robe St. Francis was wearing when he received the stigmata. In 2024.
I mean 1224.
It actually looks like something pierced the left side of his robe. These are reliquaries of various saints. There's a relic of St. Francis's blood in here from the linen cloth that he used to dress the wound on his side. And this is a relic that's carried in processions around Laverna on important holy days. Some fancy containers containing different body parts sometimes, fingers, bones, drops of blood. This is the chapel of the sacred stigmata. When St. Francis received the stigmata, the marks of nails appeared on his hands and feet, and his right side was pierced with a large wound, as if done by a spear. And that wound often bled so much that his trousers and tunics would be soaked with blood. This memorial on the floor shows the exact spot where the saint received his wounds. That's the bells calling the faithful to Mass, and also the 3 o'clock procession down the corridor of the stigmata, which has occurred every single day since the year 1431.
Alzati giudice della terra, rendi la ricompensa ai suoi.
This is the beginning of the procession of the stigmata that takes place every day at 3 o'clock. Since the year 1431. Just taking a walk down into this ravine a little bit. It's amazing how they fashioned a hermitage in this mountain using so many of the rocks that are in place as part of their foundation. You can still hear the monks celebrating Mass in the distance. How many times this has been sung over the centuries and centuries. I think this is a grotto where St. Francis would often come to pray and meditate. These mammoth rocks. It's just glorious. Enormous rock. It's just overhanging. It's amazing. This is the chapel of San Sebastian, where St. Francis would often come to pray and reflect. And there's a crevasse or a niche behind this grate where St. Francis found refuge when the devil tried to shove him down the precipice. And legend says that the rock itself wrapped around the saint as if it were soft wax to protect him from the fall. St. Francis died in the year 1226, and he was canonized 2 years later. He is buried in the Basilica of St. Francis of Assisi in Umbria, Italy. Each year, the Feast of the Stigmata is celebrated on September the 17th. Many pilgrims attend the special masses on this day. One of our 5 more unusual things to do in Tuscany is walking the wall in Lucca, which is located in Lucca province of Tuscany. Lucca is a town that was founded by the Romans in 180 BC when the initial wall was built. Since then, there's been a wall built in 1118, 1300, and the early 1500s. So there are actually 3 sets of walls that were built around this city. And the ones that we see now are from the Renaissance origin. It's a lovely small town of about 90,000 people, famous for its olive oil and its textiles, since it was located on the Silk Road, and also its encircling wall that extends for 2.5 miles and completely encircles the city. It's the second in Europe for its length. Normally, cities would have 4 gates to enter the city for each cardinal point. Lucca, however, had no gate in the east because that was the direction of Florence, and Florence was Lucca's public enemy number 1. The walls created an imposing military system with the 11 ramparts. That's one ahead of us. These ramparts ensured protection of various sections of the walls or gate, and they were positioned so that from each rampart you could see on either side. So that traffic that you're looking at is outside the walls of Lucca. And up on the wall, there's a bike path, walking area, people picnic up here, and it overlooks the old city of Lucca. It completely encircles the town. 2.5 miles of wall. And in some places it's almost 36 feet tall. It was in the 19th century that the Duchess Maria Louisa of Bourbon converted these military walls into a public walkway of gardens and bicycle paths, and it's just a great way to experience Lucca. As I mentioned, there were initially 3 gates into the city. The 3 cardinal points minus the one on the east because they didn't want to invite Florence in to capture the city. But when Napoleon finally captured Lucca after its 700 years of independence and freedom, avoiding capture by the Florentines, Napoleon succeeded where they had failed and captured Lucca, and a 4th gate was added, which he named Elisa after his sister Elisa, the Elisa Gate. By the way, they do have underground tours of the wall so that you can go down into the tunnels and caverns underneath to see, where they used to store the munitions and the cannons and everything. Leonardo da Vinci, properly named Leonardo di Ser Piero da Vinci, which is Italian for Leonardo, son of Piero Vinci, was born April the 15th, 1452, in this little stone house in the hamlet of Anciano, which is very close to Vinci, where he was actually raised. He was born out of wedlock. His father came from a long line of Florentine notaries, and his mother was from the lower class. This second building in the complex has been turned into a Da Vinci museum, which displays reproductions of many of his drawings. And it's just a short walk through vineyards and olive groves from here to Vinci. His Casa Natale, where he was born. And we are in the Tuscan hills, as you can see. This little hamlet of Anciano, overlooking the olive groves and vineyards in Tuscany with the Apennines in the background. What a wonderful place to grow up. We're in the 13th century Santa Croce church, in which Leonardo da Vinci was reportedly baptized as a young man or a child. And over here, in this little specially designed room, is undoubtedly the ancient baptismal font that was used for the occasion. Da Vinci's religion was reason, not faith, though before he died in 1519 at the age of 67 years, he deeply regretted not following the tenets of the Catholic faith, and he received the last rites of the Church on his deathbed. In fact, Leonardo added the cross to his final painting, John the Baptist, which he completed at his rural home in Clou, France, as a testament to his belief in Christ. This wooden sculpture by Mario Ciroli, 1987, is of the Vitruvian Man, and it's based on Leonardo's drawing representing his concept of the ideal human body proportions. This is the Museo Leonardiano, or the Leonardo Museum, which is located in the old Guidi Castle. And it's home to some of his original creations and inventions that were found in his notebooks, as well as some of the machines and models created by the genius. He was so much more than just an artist. He was a scientist, an engineer, philosopher. His notebooks and drawings of flying machines, hydraulic pumps, a steam cannon. He had so many machines that were useful to life. But his design of the flying machines was based on his extensive study of birds in flight. This was a winged aircraft that he designed. That's a flying sphere that he designed. An aerial screw. The detail of a mechanical wing, again based on his study of birds. And this was one of his earlier flying machines. And this was a flapping wing. His drawings. It is said of Leonardo da Vinci that he knew more than any other man who's lived. He truly was a Renaissance man in every regard, even though he'd never had any formal education. More of his models of machines. It's a wonder he didn't invent the computer. Leonardo's knowledge of the human body was derived largely from his dissecting corpses, and is the reason that his paintings were so lifelike and anatomically accurate. Leonardo's understanding of the heart and the circulation of the blood throughout the body was far ahead of his time. And he was also the first to recognize and define cirrhosis of the liver. That's the drawing of Leonardo's Vitruvian Man. Again, his concept of the ideal human body proportions. Leonardo da Vinci and Kibashi, two maestros. This is the Piazza Guido just outside one of the Leonardo museums, and as you can see, they've got some sculptures and all sorts of numbers and geometric configurations. That recalls Leonardo's work. I feel like I should be playing hopscotch. And this is the Da Vinci Exhibition Center. You can see more of his works and drawings here. One of the 5 unique things to do in Tuscany that we've chosen was to visit the archaeological park in Città del Tufo and La Vie Cave, that ancient Etruscan network of roads that connect the villages of Pitigliano, Serrano, and Sovana. I'm outside the small village of Sovana in Grosseto province, where there is a long history of Etruscans dating back to the 10th and 9th century BC. The Etruscans were Tuscany's first ancient civilization, and they are a people surrounded by mystery. Archaeologists have pieced together much of this ancient people, but many questions still remain. Take, for example, the Vie Cave, which is what I'm walking on right now. The Vie Cave is a network of roads linking the towns of Pitigliano, Serrano, and Sovana. And each road, dug by hand into the soft tuff rock, with some of them being 20 meters deep. I'm going to try and get down here without sliding and slipping. It is a little slippery. Oh, there. Archaeologists have never really conclusively figured out what the purpose of these roads are, this network of roads. Some thought, well, maybe it's a means of controlling or channeling water. Maybe they were communication routes. Perhaps they had some ceremonial purpose. Or maybe they were just great protection from the enemy, because you could walk from village to village being completely protected by the surrounding rocks. Isn't this amazing? Thousands of years old. It's a labyrinth of trails or sunken roads, ancient, gigantic corridors carved into tough rock. This is another of the dugout roads, sunken roads, part of that network or labyrinth of the Vie Cave. And this particular one is called Vie Cave Poggioprisca. It's in the archaeological park Città del Tuffo. Dug out by hand. And nobody knows why for sure. This landscape is unique in the world. The Etruscans built houses atop their cliffs and dug out cities for the dead in the sides of the cliffs. And perhaps they bury them in La Vie Cave as well. We're at the Tomba del Tifoni. Which is a necropolis put in this cliff face. They've built steps up there, and then they have these large burial chambers they've dug into the tufa. And a large round cave there. This is the most famous tomb in the necropolis, called the Hildebrand necropolis. Dating back to the 3rd and end of the 4th century BC. And this excavated area is known as the Tomb of Leone, Tomba dei Leoni. Almost looks like it's a throne area. Steps on either side of it. And these trenches. This area is on the World Heritage Watch list of endangered monuments because of the fragility of the rock and how easily it erodes because of the softness of the tufa. There's a little one right down there. It's nice and cool down here. Interesting markings in the ceiling. I guess this would have been a final resting place for some privileged Etruscan. Historians don't want this archaeological history to be lost or forgotten, which is part of the mission of the archaeological park, to make sure that interest stays alive in this aspect of Tuscan's history. As always, thanks for joining me on my video, 5 Unique Things to Do in Tuscany. My new Potty Posh app is a fantastic little travel guide for must-see destinations in Tuscany, the Languedoc-Roussillon and Provence, France, and the app uniquely includes GPS locations, descriptions, and ratings of all the public toilets in the locations visited on the app. Written in 5 languages, it's an app for people on the go, like yourselves, who have to go. So if you're out and about in Tuscany or the south of France, take Potty Posh with you. Available on Apple and Google. And I leave you with this: the marrow of life is not your usual trek.